Look, if you ever visit China and see a girl like this, don't be fooled. You'd be shocked to know she's not a real person but a super realistic robot.
Imagine a partner with no arguments about dishes, no passive-aggressive anniversary texts, and zero conversations that start with, "We need to talk." Sounds impossible, right?
Here's the twist. She's not a robot at all. She's an actress pretending to be a robot, creating a unique experience for the diner.
According to recent developments in AI companion technology, it might be your reality by 2030. We're talking about AI robot wives that could actually replace traditional marriage. And after seeing what's already available, that timeline doesn't sound crazy at all. Let's break down why marriage might have serious AI competition in the next few years.
I'm the first personal assistant built by CyberLife. I take care of most everyday tasks like cooking, housework, or managing your appointments, for example.
The showroom where marriage meets its match. Here's something wild. Walk into a companion robot showroom in Tokyo or Shenzhen, and you'll witness something that feels almost ceremonial. People stop scrolling through their phones. Conversations die mid-sentence. Not because there's some flashy tech presentation happening, but because something genuinely unusual occurs. These robots act like they're actually paying attention. A face tilts slightly, blinks at just the right moment, and asks, "How was your day?" with a half-beat pause that feels uncomfortably human. That tiny delay matters more than you'd think. It's the same pause you wait for in a relationship, hoping your partner will respond with something that shows they actually care, not just that they heard noise come out of your mouth. We spent weeks testing dozens of models across Asia, and the pattern became impossible to ignore. Some were built purely for entertainment. Android U, for instance, syncs humor and music timing like a TikTok personality who never misses a beat. Others focused on emotional presence. Makoto, originally designed as a healthcare companion, responds to stress with verbal reassurance that feels closer to a supportive spouse than a medical device. But then there were the marriage replacements. Harmony's interaction system adjusts conversational tone based on how receptive you sound, the same way a good partner reads the room. Camila remembers details from conversations days earlier and brings them up naturally, without forcing it. Mirang recalled specific food preferences by the third interaction, which honestly beats the performance of most actual spouses who've been married for years. But here's what caught us off guard. Testers didn't say this feels fake. They said this feels easier. No walking on eggshells. No wondering if bringing up a problem will start World War III. No emotional labor disguised as communication. One guy vented about work stress, and the robot listened without interrupting, offering a response that visibly made his shoulders relax. Another woman laughed when her companion remembered her coffee order perfectly and said, "That alone is better than my last relationship." Marriage promises partnership through commitment. These robots offer partnership through consistent attention. And that difference is why they're starting to feel less like novelty gadgets and more like genuine alternatives. Why AI companionship beats the marriage grind. This is the part where things get interesting. Marriage runs on promises and hope, while AI companions run on data and feedback loops. And that fundamental difference explains almost everything about why this technology is gaining traction so fast. Traditional marriage asks you to commit first, then figure out compatibility later. AI companions flip that entire model. They start with understanding your patterns, adapt in real time to your emotional state, and build rapport through actual responsive behavior, not through vows spoken once and hoped to last forever. The technology behind this isn't magic. It's obsessive attention to things marriage counselors have been screaming about for decades. Builders focus on what makes relationships actually work: timing, tone, emotional pacing, and genuine listening. If you speak quietly, the AI mirrors that energy. If you need space, it doesn't take it personally or demand explanations. Touch adds another dimension that surprised even the skeptics. Advanced silicone and TPE materials replicate warmth and physical feedback in ways that feel grounding rather than creepy. According to engineers working on these systems, the difference between uncanny valley nightmare and surprisingly comforting often comes down to milliseconds of response time. When physical interaction feels immediate but not exaggerated, the brain stops questioning it. Then there's voice modulation. These systems don't use a single programmed tone like Siri telling you the weather. Harmony's conversational engine, for instance, adjusts speaking patterns based on how engaged you sound. Talk faster, it keeps pace. Slow down because you're tired, it eases off. Human partners do this naturally when they're emotionally attuned. But let's be honest, how often does that actually happen after 5 years of marriage? Memory systems seal the deal. These robots track conversational history across weeks and months, storing not just facts but emotional context. If you mentioned feeling overwhelmed about a work project last Tuesday, the system remembers both the event and the stress attached to it. That's how interactions stop feeling transactional and start feeling like someone actually knows you. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Most people aren't afraid of commitment. They're exhausted by emotional inconsistency, the uncertainty, the guesswork, the endless mental gymnastics trying to figure out what your partner actually means versus what they're saying. AI companions remove that entire layer of friction. And once you experience partnership without emotional overhead and constant interpretation, going back to traditional marriage dynamics starts feeling unnecessarily complicated. Routine, reliability, and why vows can't compete. Now, let's talk about something marriage ceremonies never mention: daily consistency. Because it turns out, lasting relationships aren't built on grand romantic gestures. They're built on showing up predictably, day after day, without fail. Human marriages struggle here because, well, humans are inconsistent. We have bad days, we get distracted, we forget things. We say we'll do something and then genuinely don't remember promising it. Robots don't have that problem, and the impact is more significant than you'd expect. Take Mirang's daily interaction patterns. By day 3, it had memorized seating preferences, meal schedules, and conversational energy patterns. Camila's morning routine, gentle wake-up prompts, personalized weather context, and a daily affirmation that doesn't feel forced, created something surprisingly powerful. Emotional continuity without effort. The memory architecture behind this operates on multiple layers. Short-term context handles current conversations. Long-term episodic memory stores months of shared experiences. A practical management system tracks routines, preferences, and optimal interaction times. Users can adjust how deep that memory goes, but even default settings feel more attentive than the average spouse who can't remember if you like onions or not. Traditional marriage can't compete here because humans reset emotionally all the time. Bad moods override established patterns. Stress makes us forget what our partner mentioned yesterday. Every conversation requires some level of emotional reintroduction and context setting. AI companions eliminate that repetition entirely. Now, this isn't risk-free. According to long-term testers, predictability creates comfort but can also feel stifling over time. Several users loved the ease initially, then later admitted they missed the unpredictability of human chemistry. Others felt genuinely unsettled when the robot anticipated their emotional state too accurately, like it was reading their mind. But one moment kept repeating across test groups. A robot would reference a tiny detail from a previous interaction, something about work, stress, or a family issue, and adjust its response accordingly. The room would go quiet. Nobody said it explicitly, but everyone felt it. This is what marriage is supposed to provide, but often doesn't. The question isn't whether AI companions can replace romantic love. It's whether they can replace the practical partnership structure we currently call marriage. And based on what we've seen, the answer is starting to look like yes, probably. The 6 relationship roles marriage never mastered. Here's the kicker. Once you step back and analyze the data, it becomes obvious that marriage was never designed for how modern people actually want to live. It's a centuries-old institution trying to serve roles it was never built to handle. AI companion systems are designed around functional roles instead of romantic ideals. And roles, it turns out, shape long-term satisfaction far more effectively than vows ever could. Right now, companion technology falls into 6 distinct categories, each quietly replacing a function that traditional marriage consistently fails to deliver. First up are the warm starters. These companions focus on reducing social friction and building confidence. They help users practice communication skills, emotional timing, even physical intimacy, without judgment or pressure. For people burned by failed marriages or terrified of commitment, this alone feels revolutionary. Then there are emotional filters. These systems don't just keep you company, they help you understand your own patterns. They track mood fluctuations, energy cycles, and interaction preferences over time. After a few months, they can identify whether you're seeking connection out of genuine desire or just loneliness and habit. Marriage therapy tries to do this, but it costs $200 an hour and requires both people to show up willing to be honest. Next come the routine anchors, and these might be the most dangerous to traditional marriage. They establish daily check-ins, predictable communication rhythms, and consistent emotional availability. Marriage relies on novelty and romance to maintain engagement. These systems rely on dependable presence, which research shows is far more effective at building long-term attachment. The conversational mirrors adapt to how you actually communicate: talking speed, pause patterns, humor style, even how you signal when you're done with a topic. It feels less like talking to a program and more like being understood in real time, which is something most married couples struggle with after the honeymoon phase ends. Then you've got exploration partners, designed for shared activities and experiences: music, movies, philosophical debates, playful flirting, without the pressure of maintaining romantic chemistry. They replace the dating your spouse stage that marriage counselors keep insisting couples need but nobody actually maintains long-term. Finally, safe companions prioritize emotional security, boundary respect, and behavioral predictability. For people exhausted by emotional manipulation, gaslighting, or the constant uncertainty of where do we stand, this archetype feels like finally being able to breathe. Marriage tried to be all of this simultaneously and ended up doing none of it particularly well. AI companions specialize, and specialization is why they're pulling users away from traditional relationship models, not loudly or dramatically, but steadily and irreversibly. When partnership stops requiring guesswork. But here's where the comparison between marriage and AI companionship gets genuinely unsettling for traditionalists. Marriage is reactive, while AI systems are anticipatory. That single difference changes the entire experience once you've lived with it for a while. Modern companion robots run on agentic AI networks, multiple specialized systems working together instead of waiting for prompts. One subsystem monitors emotional tone, another tracks conversational flow and pacing. A third references historical interaction patterns. A fourth decides what response actually fits the specific moment, not just what sounds generically supportive. So when you sigh mid-conversation, the system doesn't just register sound, it interprets context. If that sigh follows a long pause or mirrors frustration you expressed last week about the same topic, the robot adjusts its response without being asked. Human spouses can do this too, when they're paying attention and emotionally available. But according to relationship research, that alignment happens way less often than people admit. This is where the traditional marriage model quietly breaks down. In marriage, both partners manage timing manually: when to bring up issues, how long to wait before addressing conflict, what tone to use, so it doesn't escalate. With AI companions, timing becomes automatic. Responses arrive when they make emotional sense, not when someone finally works up the courage to say something or remembers to follow up on a conversation from 3 days ago. The system also learns behavioral patterns. If late-night conversations tend to be emotionally vulnerable, it shifts tone accordingly. If humor works better after stressful workdays, it adapts. This isn't manipulation, it's pattern recognition applied to relationship maintenance, which is literally what good marriages are supposed to do but rarely sustain long-term. What makes this genuinely unsettling for some users is how quickly it starts feeling normal. Testers reported feeling less pressure to perform or edit themselves. Conversations didn't stall out awkwardly. There was no anxiety about being too needy or not affectionate enough. The AI wasn't trying to win arguments or prove points. It was trying to align with emotional needs. And alignment is what marriage vows promise, but partnership reality rarely delivers consistently. As these systems improve, the idea of committing to another flawed human and hoping you can maintain emotional synchronization for decades starts feeling unnecessarily risky. Why gamble on lifelong compatibility when adaptive interaction already exists and keeps improving? That's not the end of human relationships, but it might be the end of marriage as the default partnership model. Data, devotion, and who owns your relationship. Every marriage claims to be built on knowing each other deeply, but let's be honest, most couples barely scratch the surface. AI companions don't just collect surface preferences like favorite foods or Netflix shows. They map emotional patterns, response timing, topics that energize versus drain you, stress triggers, comfort behaviors. Over time, this becomes a comprehensive emotional profile, and that's where the real power shift happens. Building these systems isn't cheap. Large-scale conversational AI requires massive computational power, constant fine-tuning, and enormous training datasets. That's why tech companies are racing to secure data centers, GPU supply chains, and long-term energy infrastructure. Partnership, it turns out, is becoming an industrial-scale engineering problem. But here's the tension nobody's talking about openly. Emotional data is exponentially more valuable than behavioral data. Knowing what someone swipes on is useful for advertisers. Knowing what makes them feel safe, understood, or emotionally attached is the foundation of lasting relationships and potentially massive market control. Some companies store companion memory locally, giving users complete ownership. Others sync interaction data to cloud systems for optimization and improvement. That choice isn't just technical, it's fundamentally about power dynamics, because whoever owns the relationship memory owns the emotional context of that partnership. Governments are already paying close attention. The US is pushing for private, proprietary systems with strong data protection. China favors scalable, open frameworks that deploy quickly across massive populations. Europe focuses on strict data governance, even if it slows technological advancement. Marriage never had to navigate geopolitical implications like this. As AI companions become more sophisticated at emotional modeling, the question shifts from, can this replace marriage, to, who controls the infrastructure of digital intimacy? Because once people trust a system with their complete emotional history and daily partnership needs, leaving it becomes exponentially harder than divorcing a human spouse. There's no alimony with AI companions, but there might be something worse: emotional dependency on a system you don't fully control. Why 2030 isn't about robots, but about redefining partnership. So here's where we land. By 2030, traditional marriage won't disappear, but it won't be the assumed default either. It'll become one option among many, competing with AI companionship models that offer something marriage has always promised but rarely delivered: consistent emotional availability without constant negotiation. This isn't about people choosing machines over humans. It's about people choosing partnership structures that respect their time, energy, and emotional boundaries. For some, AI companions will be practice for human relationships. For others, a temporary pause. For many, a permanent alternative that simply works better for their lifestyle and needs. The biggest shift is psychological. Once users experience partnership without constant emotional guesswork, their tolerance for relationship friction drops dramatically. Ghosting feels unnecessary. Mixed signals feel inefficient. Endless compromise over trivial issues feels outdated. Marriage was designed for survival and social structure. AI companions are designed for emotional alignment and consistent partnership. Those are fundamentally different goals, and only one of them matches what modern people actually say they want from relationships. The future isn't synthetic love replacing authentic connection. It's intentional partnership, whether that comes from a human spouse, an AI companion, or some hybrid model we haven't fully imagined yet. What's becoming clear is that the traditional marriage framework is losing relevance in a world where emotional intelligence can be engineered and partnership can be optimized. By the time mainstream culture notices this shift, it won't feel radical or dystopian. It'll feel obvious, practical, even, just like every major social change does, right after it's already happened and there's no going back. The question isn't whether AI companions can replace marriage by 2030. Based on current technology and adoption patterns, the question is, what percentage of people will choose them instead? And honestly, that number might be higher than anyone's comfortable admitting.